Okay, so if you're able to see or hear, you can just drop a comment. I think we are live. Okay, very good evening. I'll just give a minute for other people to also settle down. So we'll start with that. I think the voice and all is fine. So just let me move this for a second. Okay. So very good evening to all of you. We're back with the environment HYTs, the high yielding topics. We have done 3 of them so far and you guys had really liked and appreciated it. So we'll be continuing with the other ones and now we'll be completing them. So 3 which we have already done, especially for environment. So 1 is species in use, terms in use, and Indian state of forest report in a lot of detail. Of course, other subjects, HYTs also we have done. So again, if you have to quickly revise the important topics and themes, please do so. Today is HYT 4 of environment, which happens to be one of the most expected topics, right? This is the COP, which is the Conference of Parties 29 of UNFCCC. Okay, so again, that is the first thing that we'll have a look at. And here we will see all the important updates and we'll end with a simple mind map. Okay, so if you're watching this lecture, if you just draw the mind map, I'll share with you at the end. If you have to revise that, your job is done. Okay, so that is how we aim to proceed, right? So now one by one, we'll quickly have a look at what is the main, let's say, part. Whenever you prepare this topic, first thing I'll ask you, so for example, we know when we talk about the Rio Earth Summit, which led to 3 important foundational conventions. So you have the UNCBD Convention on Biological Diversity, you have the UNCCD Convention to Combat Desertification, and of course the United Nations Convention to combat United Nations Convention for Climate Change. Now, only the updates I'm telling you. So again, this is COP 16, this happened in Cali, Colombia. Okay, this happened in Riyadh. Okay, so this also we need to be aware about. And this is the topic for discussion for today. This is COP 29. This happened in Baku. Baku is in Azerbaijan. So many a times, if you prepare something like this and then organize only the current updates, because if you're done with the static part, this would help you, right? So we are focusing on the COP 29 and its updates. So a couple of major updates we'll have a look at and how you can optimize on that. So very first thing that you should know is the location, right? So we are talking of Baku. This is Azerbaijan. So be aware, in the previous parts, UPSC has already asked you Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This is Caspian Sea. So Baku, which is in Azerbaijan, is, let's say, boundary Caspian Sea. So countries around Caspian Sea. Okay, these are parts, very basic geography part, location wise, you should know. That's the first part. Second part, in any COP, is there anything which stands out? Okay, so in terms of, let's say, declaration, convention, anything which has come out. So that is what becomes important for us. Now, while I'm talking of COP 29, okay, I would again back and forth be referring to a very important COP, that is COP 21. This was our Paris Agreement. Okay, this was of 2015. So back and forth I'll be referring it. Okay, so which also tells you that in environment, especially in all these areas, conventions and all these things, they take a lot of time, okay, to ultimately be implemented. Now, main key highlights we'll quickly have a look at, along with some infographics for quick revisions. What are the main takeaways of COP 29? Okay, so very important takeaway is NCQG, New Climate Finance Goal. Okay, in the past, UPSC has asked you that from $100 billion from developed to developing, what is that? UPSC, of course, which was referring to the Green Climate Fund. UPSC also asked you as a one-liner, what are NDCs? Okay, so the main highlight which has happened in COP 29 is that $300 billion have been allocated. Okay, that would be per year. And this would be, and this is, of course, earlier you had $100 billion to be transferred. Now 3 times. This is the new collective, or I can say the new climate finance goal. That is the first main takeaway. And overall, they're having a huge target, $1.3 trillion per year. Now you can also see this in some other term. They can say this is the Baku, okay, finance roadmap or the Baku finance goal. So because the COP happened in Baku, so you'll remember this is how the main takeaway is. Number one, so there is a finance related commitment here in COP29. Number one, of course, India is opposing that. When I'll tell you COP29 and India, then I'll also explain that. Fine. Number one. Second, carbon markets. Okay, and this again happens to be one of the most important takeaways of this particular COP29. In carbon markets, what you need to know. So here we are talking about Article 6. This Article 6 is of Paris Agreement. Okay, so here you have the Article 6.2, Article 6.4 and Article 6.8 within Article 6. So whenever there is a bilateral carbon trade between the countries, this would be under 6.2. Now, you would be wondering what is Article 6? Again, I've told you this overall refers to carbon markets. Within this 6.2 and 6.4, these are your carbon based, these are market mechanisms, whereas 6.8 is your non-market mechanism. Okay, non-market and market. Now in 6.2, first thing is bilateral. So let's say if India and Japan have to do a particular agreement, this would be done under Article 6.2. that is number one, bilateral. Second, you have international transfer mitigation outcomes as a part of this. ITMOs, international transferred mitigation outcomes. By the way, this term also we've done in terms in news. Okay, so bilateral, anything between two countries, the transfer mitigation of these carbon credits is a part of 6.2. Then what is 6.4? This is collective. So if I'm talking about UNFCCC combined, many countries are a part of UNFCCC which are adhering to this. So whatever transfer is going to happen, this is a part of UNFCCC which is under 6.4. Okay, 6.8 is non-market. Let's say we want to invest on renewables, there is a talk on technology, anything which is outside the market is your 6.8. 6.2, 6.4 is market mechanisms. Overall, this is Article 6 of Paris Agreement. Now you may say this is a very old article. True. But what is how is it related? That full, let's say full operationalization of this particular has been finalized. Main thing is that finalization of this has happened. In the previous COPs, discussion was happening, but it was not yet finalized. That is the main part for you to remember. Okay? 6.2 bilateral ho gaya, easy. And what is 6.4? 6.4 for us is again UN managed. 6.8 is outside, so that is non-market. Third is your methane emission reductions. Now please note, especially in the recent COPs, methane has been a point which has been discussed again and again. If I give you example, in COP26, which happened in Glasgow, UK, there was a mention of global methane pledge, which aims to reduce 30% of methane by 2030. 30% reduction. Main takeaway was India was not a signatory to this. That was COP26. In COP27, again, there was something known as Methane Alert Response System, MARS. In COP29, what is happening? We are talking about declaration on reducing methane from organic waste. Now, first question comes to mind, how much is the contribution of organic waste? So, organic waste contributes 20% to global methane emissions, 20%. Okay? So, you're basically talking specifically about organic waste. UPSC may try to confuse you saying that this is overall methane emissions. No, it only contributes 20% because this is specific to organic waste. Now, if you see the line very carefully, over 30 countries, excluding India, signed this, excluding India. And which is why this is only an extension of the COP26 Global Methane Pledge. So, Global Methane Pledge, India did not sign it. This is only an extension and this is more specific to organic waste. Okay, so now you would also understand that Global Methane Pledge, which was launched in COP26. Okay, and this is based on this, and India is again signatory neither of the Global Methane Pledge nor of the Global Methane or the Declaration on Reduction of Waste, Organic Waste. Please keep that in mind. Okay, now 3 things we have done. Then this also talks about indigenous people, local communities. So again, you will have something known as the Baku work plan, which will talk about how indigenous people should be again given proper preference, integration. So this talks about, now this is more or less self-explanatory, okay? So I'm not going into too much detail here, what it talks about. Similarly, you have a gender and climate action, that integration of gender and climate. In fact, in the COP16 of CBD, even COP15 of CBD, both indigenous and gender part has been mentioned. In the COP15 of CCD also, this gender part was also highlighted, okay? So what you are seeing more and more mainstreaming of gender, indigenous people in the recent conference of parties. Last, one of the major initiative is Baku Harmonia, climate initiative for farmers. The moment you see farmers, think of food. So here, FAO, the UN specialized agency, okay, the Food and Agriculture Organization becomes important for you to know. So here, and again, think about, the moment you see agriculture, think of climate smart agriculture, many other initiatives. So this is Baku Harmonia, climate initiative for farmers. That is what you need to know. Okay. So again, just quickly recapping, most important out of this whole slide is the new collective or even the new climate finance goal, number 1, followed by the Article 6. Okay. And then of course the methane emission reductions and so on and so forth. Now, within COP26, now I'll go through some infographics, a couple of other details also we'll add. Okay, so here there are 6, 2 or 3 more I'll also add, and then I'll move to the COP29 India-based initiatives. Okay, again, this now we've understood that COP29 achieves full operationalization of Article 6. What is Article 6? How is it related to Paris? What is 6.2, 6.4, 6.8? We know. So we have done this well. COP29 agrees international carbon market standards, again related to Article 6. So if you get a news like, or let's say statement like this, you'll also understand that why this news article was there. Again related to Article 6. Okay. Now, India-Japan plan a joint carbon credit mechanism. India-Japan, of course, this is a bilateral, okay, which is why this joint credit mechanism will be formed under which article? This will be Article 6.2. Okay. So now you can even tell if it is collectively under UN, it would have been 6.4. However, this is specific, okay, to 2 countries, bilateral, it has to be 6.2. Okay. So again, there will be a registry to make this happen and so on and so forth. So we'll keep that in mind. Now, this is important. Of course, the discussion on this has happened in the previous COPs as well, but here we'll also speak. This talks about full operationalization of loss and damage fund. Full operationalization of loss and damage fund. Now, again, because the prelims are near, only 2 or 3 facts you need to know. The concept of loss and damage, number 1, this concept was spoken about in COP19. This is your Warsaw. Warsaw is in Poland. The concept of loss and damage came. The fund was created in COP27. This COP27 is Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. There were talks of operationalization of this fund in COP28. Again, UAE, which is again in Dubai. But now you see full operationalization of this fund has happened in COP29. So in our notes, we have seen 6 points. The 7th should be full operationalization of loss and damage fund. In fact, in our mind map, when we condense all these things, we'll add. So loss and damage fund. Now, again, in case we are not sure of what this means, see, there is mitigation, there is adaptation, there is loss and damage. Mitigation is when you want to remove the problem from the root cause. Okay. So again, let's say if it is very cold outside, one thing what you can do, you can wear a, let's say, blazer or have a blanket. You are adapting to the changes. Mitigation would be to remove it from the root cause. These are 2 approaches to climate change. Okay. So countries want to mitigate also, and countries want to adapt also. Both these things require money and of course skill, technology. At the same time, you have something known as loss and damage. So particularly the vulnerable countries, LDCs, small island developing states, though if they, again, let's say they are getting submerged because of sea level rise, they will have a very much devastating impact, which will lead to irreversible damages and changes, which is then compensated through a loss and damage idea. For that, you have a fund. Okay, so please keep this in mind. Now, many times you will see this $1.3 trillion, or sometimes you will see $300 billion per year. The clarification here is This is overall money. This is the Baku finance goal. And in this particular part, $300 billion per year is said now to be given as a grant. So out of the huge pool, $1.3 trillion, only a very small part is going to be a grant, which is why countries like India, other developing countries have said that this again seems to be just a eyewash. Okay, that this would not be very meaningful, because again the experience is there are so many funds, there is so much of commitment, but when it comes to ground reality, things don't happen. Okay, so keep this in mind. This we have just seen, reducing methane from organic waste. Now here again only two things to remember. In fact, I should say three things. One is this is related to the COP26 global methane pledge. This pledge and this declaration India has not signed. Okay, and this declaration there is 20% of methane contribution from organic waste. Okay, this is what you need to know. Additionally, there's again a small report. There's a UNEP Food Waste Index report of 2024. Food Waste Index, again you may think FAO, the answer is here UNEP. Okay, which again talks about overall emissions from the food waste and the food losses. This is all you need to know, that this is related to global methane pledge. India did not sign the pledge and India has not signed the declaration, and this contributes to 20% to overall methane emissions. Okay, and the last overall thing here is UAE. Okay, overall had launched the Global Energy Efficiency Alliance in COP27. Okay, and here also again don't need to exactly, because even in COP28 there was a call to triple the targets that you have for renewable energy, even for nuclear energy. So again overall you'll remember that there is a Global Energy Efficiency Alliance which is launched in COP29. Again a probable question can be, let's say this alliance was launched by IEA, IRENA, they will keep on changing the bodies to distract you from where this was exactly launched. This can be a probable question. Okay, now if we were to place everything that we've done so far in a simple mind map, this is what I would encourage you to draw with your own hands. This is your center node, COP29, Baku, Azerbaijan. So first thing you need to prepare is its location. If location is done, move ahead. Second thing, new climate finance goal. This is what we do. So write down 1.3 trillion. And second, write down $300 billion per year. So you'll understand both and the context associated. Loss and damage fund. Now just write down all I told you. Where the concept came, where the fund started, and how is this fund related to COP29. How is it related? The full operationalization has happened in the, let's say, COP29. Then gender and climate action. So again, make this part that they are integrated. There is a proper relation between gender and climate action. Right now, carbon markets we've seen. First remember Article 6, first level of information. Then remember 6.2, 6.4. For this write down these are basically market, and separately write down somewhere 6.8 so that you will remember that 6.8 non-market, 6.2, 6.4 are market mechanisms. Then Baku Harmonia Climate Initiative for Farmers. This we just saw. Remember FAO additionally, that it is supporting it. Then Global Energy Efficiency Alliance we just had a look at. Okay, for methane emission reductions, first of all it is related to organic waste, which contributes only 20%. This declaration on methane reduction is related to Global Methane Pledge, which itself was launched in COP26 and overall put across, because India is not a signatory to both, either this declaration or even to the Global Methane Pledge. Then you have two more terms, which again I'll explain to you. So here there is a biennial, and please note the term transparency. The term transparency is very crucial to Paris Agreement, and you'll also understand why. If you even get a statement, what is transparency and in which context is transparency used in climate? So climate में transparency, the main use is that it is used in the climate finance part. Whatever, let's say, readings or whatever data is being fed, it should be done in a verifiable and a transparent manner. So the BTR have to be submitted. These are the reports. In COP29, this again report has been submitted by 13 countries for the first time. So don't remember how many countries, just remember these reports are submitted. Okay, and these reports are overall related to Paris Agreement. So again you see so many linkages of Paris Agreement back and forth. One was Article 6 we saw. Okay, another is this biennial let's say transparency report. Okay, so please just hold this thought. I'll just explain this further in a moment. There is a Baku adaptation roadmap. Okay, so see, there is loss and damage we just saw. There is also Baku adaptation. Now, if we talk about adaptation, we just saw Article 6 of Paris Agreement. Okay, Article 6 talks about carbon markets. There is again an Article 7 of Paris Agreement. Article 7 talks about adaptation in general. So there is a Baku adaptation roadmap which will simply tell how will the countries move forward. Okay? That is the only takeaway here. How will the countries move forward? And this is related to Article 7. That is what you need to know. Article 7 and Baku adaptation roadmap. Biennial transparency report was submitted for the first time by 13 countries, but it is actually related to Paris Agreement. If you have condensed each of these things, hardly it will take you less than 5 minutes to revise COP29. Okay. Now, a couple of things here I just wanted to tell you. Now, there is this biennial transparency report. So there is a climate transparency platform which has also come up in this particular COP29, which is being supported by GEF Global Environment Facility, implemented through UNEP. Okay, so that is the first thing. There's a climate transparency platform. Okay, please note the term transparency again and again. I am highlighting. So if I say what is climate transparency, this can again be as a term or as a one-liner. So according to UNFCCC, transparency in the context of climate change, what is it? Reporting and review of climate information and data. Because again, if you don't report it well, what would this lead to? Even greenwashing. Many countries or companies will say we have reduced 10 tons of carbon dioxide, but the reality may be different. So remember the term climate transparency. Okay, that this talks about relevant climate information and data. Okay, so again, if they give you a clear, robust data, climate, so this will help you. Trust, credibility, accountability. Okay, now how is this related to? So there is a Paris Agreement, like we discussed. In Paris Agreement, there is something known as ETF, Enhanced Transparency Framework. Now, BTR was in the news. We just saw biennial transparency report. BTR is related to Paris Agreement. How? Because in Paris Agreement, there is something known as Enhanced Transparency Framework. So just maybe from BTR, they are interested to ask you and just ask you Enhanced Transparency Framework is related to. They can give you WTO, and this can be a very confusing option in the exam. So because this has been in the news, please add it to your notes. Okay. So what I am saying, a new term, Enhanced Transparency Framework under Paris Agreement. BTR again under Paris Agreement, but was in news because of COP29. BTR. Okay. So again, this is requiring the framework requires the countries to submit their first BTR. Okay, and there is a particular inventory report, so please keep this in mind. Okay, Enhanced Transparency Framework, again UNEP would support it, many of the country, and in this there is again this climate transparency platform that's also supported by UNEP. But overall, from just one node we created a couple of other branches. Okay, so biennial transparency report, a couple of other facts which we just understood. Okay, so that is one. Now, there have been some terms again and again in the news because of these contexts. Many of us we know, but just quick revision. Global Stocktake, Article 6, Enhanced Transparency Framework. First, please remember, all these three terms are related to, Paris Agreement. COP28 talked about Global Stocktake. In fact, that was the first ever Global Stocktake. Okay, that the overall first time the inventory analysis that was done, that was in Global Stocktake overall. But this is COP28. Article 6 is in news in COP29. Enhanced Transparency Framework, and especially the BTR. BTR is in news again in COP29. Again, loss and damage fund again in news in COP29, but was in news even in COP27 and COP28. Okay, so whenever you have these terms, overall, these three terms are under the Paris Agreement. Okay, and you also have a loss and damage fund. Now, there is also a biennial update report. One is transparency report. Okay, so this report also gives you the overall greenhouse gas inventory related data. This also is under the UNFCCC. In fact, we also spoke about in the Indian State of Forest report, this BUR has been mentioned many times. BUR is different, BTR different. BTR is under the Enhanced Transparency Framework. Okay, so global stock take देख लिया हमने, पहले भी देखा है, but we are putting things in context. Paris Agreement is related to so many, although Paris Agreement is almost 10 years old. Okay, I hope we'll understand this. This is your loss and damage fund. Overall, now what has India done? Okay, just last couple of points you need to know. So India talked about SIDS, adaptation finance. See, last year in COP28, India was more in news. Why? In COP28, India had launched the green credit program. Okay, if you're preparing for this exam, again see what are the 8 activities under the green credit program. But this was COP28. In COP28, India also launched, there was a global river cities alliance. In news, there was lead IT 2.0, but now in COP29, very few things are there. So I'll just quickly go through this. So one is SIDS, small island developing states. It spoke about adaptation finance and how leadership role can be had here in adaptation finance. Nothing very peculiar or specific, which is why we are not spending too much time here. Similarly, solar energy leadership. The moment you see solar energy, see India, you remember ISA, International Solar Alliance, which again came up in COP21, Paris Agreement, by the combined efforts of France and India. Okay, the head, can anybody answer what is the headquarter? The headquarter of the ISA, one thing you need to know, and the couple of relevant updates on ISA. Terms like solar mamas, okay, some of the new initiatives of ISA. By the way, when I say ISA, ISA also has a $1 trillion, or I should say $1,000 billion target of fund. Okay, now lead IT. IT is for the transition in this sector. Okay, the IT is overall for example, we also had a lead IT, the industrial transition 2.0. So there was a summit again where India also took an important part. Now the last heading is India's stance. Okay, so here also in IT transition, India wants to take a good role. Okay, industrial transition, solar energy leadership also, but nothing very specific outcome came. These are broader themes. Same when you have SIDS, let's say finance, there also there is nothing very peculiar which has come out. Okay, this is only one part that you have to remember. Now, last is what is India's stance. Now, generally what you'll know that India is very pro-climate, especially of course in the international sphere. So if you get statements like India has supported and has been very, let's say, vocal and very much agreeing to COP29 outcomes, that's not the case. India has criticized it. In fact, what has India said? COP29 is nothing but an optical illusion. So India has criticized many of these aspects. Very briefly, I'll tell you one by one. Let's say you have NCQG, which we just saw. India is saying, first of all, you have 1.3 trillion goal and you're giving only $300 as a grant. So that is one point of contention. Similarly, on all the fronts, be it mitigation. So India has protested that the scope of mitigation work program has been changing. It is not very clear. And many times when the text is not very clear, it is very ambiguous, vague, there is again a huge let's say space for ambiguity. So that also is an issue. Same, there is a just transition. Okay, this, by the way, idea, I'll just tell you, there was a just transition partnership, although it's slightly old. Just transition partnership launched in COP26. Here also India was not a member, but main thing is India has highlighted that how this in just transition, how developed countries are not supporting developing. When the transition has to be just, you need support because historical injustices have been done. You have to keep that in mind. Okay, then GST is what we have done. See, GST, India gave a huge text verdict on GST. Okay, that is global stock take, but global stock take was not explicitly mentioned as an outcome, because again I've told you, global stock take for the very first time was done in COP28. That is the overall comprehensive assessment, because see, the Paris Agreement, let's say, it wants that every 5 years a particular global stock take has to be done. So there, that is why this was in the news, that a GST, the global stock take. Okay, so that is one. Now India has not agreed to the follow-up, etc. Again, the terms and conditions, the information shared still is not up to the mark. So on those fronts, the negotiation part, etc. In this, India has again said that much more has to be done. So this is again a point where India has criticized how this has, let's say, come out. So you should know what is GST, you should know what is just transition, and all these things India has said that COP29 can still do better, which is why I also told you what is a GST global stock take. And even on adaptation, main thing is, here also India has said that again, we need to focus on incremental small changes, long-term changes, and not just only one type of change. Okay, there's no need to focus on transformational adaptation. Okay, so here also India has said that there has to be again a lot of C. Now in this, please note, there is a mention of global goal on adaptation. This was launched in COP28. So this is the entire text that I've added. This is directly from PIB. Exactly what India said, that why India said this is an optical illusion. Okay, and again, most of the articles that you read in the paper have been generally critical of the outcomes, because there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of expectation that big moments, big things would come. But when you actually see it on the ground reality and overall the text, still the commitments are not up to the mark. That is the overall takeaway for us. Okay. So with this overall we end. Again, those of you who are revising this for the last very quick part, just if you do these three mind maps, the one is COP29 India, one is these terms, and one is this whole, all the outcomes, entire topic you will be able to revise in less than 5 minutes. Okay, and again, that is the overall focus for us in these HYT series. Okay, so I will end today's HYT here itself. We again now meet on Monday. Tomorrow again Sunday, you can revise your test. You also have a Sunya All India open mock test. So those of you who are registered, again reach your centers on time. Okay, those who are still waiting for your admit cards, again reach out to the teams and center for all the overall part here. Okay. See, now India overall has been critical. That is the main idea. India has overall, we have not rejected things per se, but main thing what we have said is we don't agree to this. Okay, so Mansi, I hope you are able to understand. If there is any doubt, you guys can let me know, because again, this is a very high yielding topic and everything you wanted to know has been covered in this short span of 30 minutes. Okay. So definitely when you have to appear for the exam, this will be very handy. Last moment revisions. I'll again see you guys on Monday, same time. And the remaining HYTs, again, species in news part 2, many of you are waiting. Protected areas in news, again, short, let's say videos, but highly, let's say broad. I'll also have a look at. Okay. So again, thank you so much. Okay. We'll meet on Monday. Thank you.